Welcome to Drunk Athlete, the podcast where we sit down with everyday athletes over a few beverages and talk about the trials, tribulations, and glory of their favorite subject, their sport, and themselves. Hosted by Big Pistachio's own Coach Aaron Truslow.
Okay, we are recording. Welcome to Drunk Athlete, guys. I'm happy to have you. This is I'm going to say this is Team Vignette, right? Or the most of Team Vignette. We have Jason Mittman, Marcy Beard, and David Bogle. Bogle or Bogle? Bogle. Okay, we'll go there. Okay, so the first question I always ask on Drunk Athlete is, what are you drinking? I've got my cocktail here. I got a little gin and juice. I got a little Lily Pad Leapfrog gin from Dripping Springs and a little juice. It's a little gin, not a lot. Jason, what are you drinking? What do you have?
I'm drinking iced tea with vodka.
Perfect.
Maybe much more on the iced tea side. then we'll just say it's got vodka in it.
Okay. We can do that. Do that. David, do you have a beverage?
I do. I have something shop or a hopper, something or another grapefruit beer, which is very tasty.
Awesome. And Marcy?
So I want one of whatever Dave's got there, the Hefeweizen. I am actually just drinking water. It's a little early, but I have a Alaska Trail Run cup.
Nice.
It does get Bailey's in it later in the day.
Oh, perfect. I almost feel guilty about having you do this interview with me today because it is drop dead gorgeous. It's one of the prettiest days in Austin, Texas I have seen in a really long time. And unfortunately, when we get released from this shelter in place, it's going to be 100 degrees. And today is like a perfect 80, 85, nice little balm. So, but I've drug you somewhat indoors to do this interview. Now, wait.
At least you're not going to rub it in.
Yeah, exactly. It's beautiful. Now, okay, so maybe I should ask, where are you all calling in from? Jason, where are you calling from?
I'm in Houston, Texas, on my friend's back porch.
Nice. Marcy, where are you?
We are in Austin and in the travel trailer that we live in.
Awesome. David?
I'm up in Round Rock, Texas, from my home.
Perfect. Yeah, so we're all here. It is beautiful. All right, good. And Jason, you got a little run in today. I got a little bike ride, so I did get to take advantage of some of the beautiful weather. So, okay, so let's talk about Team Vignette. People are listening, they're like, okay, so what do you knuckleheads do? So we're going to talk about a lot of that and in your backgrounds and how you got to where you are. But Team Vignette is, for the most part, an adventure racing team. And you guys have raced together, competed together around the world, pretty much, right?
Yeah, it kind of started with me and my brother and my husband, and pulled in Jason when we first started competing in the bigger stuff. We were looking to get into Eco Challenge Borneo, so we needed a fourth person, and he was one of our alternates that was over there with us. And then just evolved over time, and eventually Dave came from Louisiana and joined us, and we've had a bunch of different teammates in and out over time. So, but yeah, adventure racing is the main thing.
That's really cool. So, Jason, I've known you since, I'm going to say 2009, for a while. I think so.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
In Marcy, I realized this is our 20th year of knowing each other and racing together. And by the way, the reason Dave's team was beating us and we'd beat his team, and so we felt the best thing to do was to remove him from his team and put him on ours, so then we didn't have to worry about beating him. It was a very good strategy.
You just let's pick the best guy and sucker him into our team. Okay.
Well, join their team, one of the two.
That's the John Beard. But Dave is a good second. But the John Beard is the best guy.
Oh. Okay, so how did, and I should probably ask Marcy, how did Team Vignette get started, and where did that name come from?
We had a couple of different names back when we first started. We were doing high-tech adventure races and just local stuff. And then when we got into Eco Challenge Borneo, we got sponsorship for it by a company called Vignette, an Austin company named Vignette. And Jason actually had more to do with that, I think. I know Darren did as well. Jason, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah. So doing Eco Challenge is a lot of money, not only for the $50,000 entry fee, and if you're lucky enough to win, which obviously the pros do, first prize was $50,000. That doesn't count your airfare or your bikes or your gear. And
So
Vignette Software Corporation was nice enough to sponsor us.
You only win back your entry fee if you win?
No, you win glory. And
Wait a
all
minute.
the teams at the finish line get a Tiger beer. So you do get, regardless of your place, you get the Malaysian version of beer called Tiger beer. And
I'm scared.
what's that show called? The really popular.
The Tiger King?
That dude. That dude would drink Tiger. He would probably drink Tiger beer.
He would for sure drink Tiger beer and anything else. So tell me about that Borneo race. Now am I correct in believing that is kind of what Survivor, the TV show Survivor, came from? Is like kind of from that, but different, right? You guys did the real thing. They did the TV version of it, sort of.
Same producer, Mark Burnett, started
Okay.
both of them, and he was in Borneo doing the first season of Survivor, the year that we did Eco Challenge. So yeah, they're definitely related. They were on an island in one place, and we were going from island to island and doing much more physical things, but it's a lot harder to film. So Eco Challenge turned into a lot harder for him to make money versus Survivor, where we're just hanging out on an island and you can get, the stories right up close, whereas it's much more difficult to film an adventure race out in the middle of the jungle.
Yeah. So how does the team prepare for a race like that? Just that one alone. I mean, I know you've done others, lots and lots of others in different places, but Eco Challenge Borneo, how do a bunch of Texans train for that?
They meow.
We did multiple endurance workouts, multi-sport endurance workouts around Austin. We each took turns putting together these big workouts where we would go like rappelling off of urban assault wall in the middle of the green belt, bushwhacking through green belts all over town, wandering through the creeks and setting up navigation challenges, and just got all our friends involved and said, here, make something hard for us to do, and just had a bunch of adventure racers in Austin at the time that were all interested in doing this crazy sport. So we kind of set up workouts for each other and just went out and explored in the middle of the night, up and down as many mountains as we could. I mean, these aren't really mountains, but all the hills around here in the middle of the summer. So we had the heat and humidity down.
Yeah, heat and humidity, you guys got locked down. If you're training in the summer, you've got that.
But Marcy, it was the meow, the O in it was overnight, which was the mentally abusive part. I hate working out overnight.
I was also orienteering, but sure, overnight's good too.
Orienteering workout, that's true.
Whatever. And then we did a couple of other races, lead-up races out in Virginia, West Virginia. We just did as many longer day, multi-day adventure races that we could find to practice.
That's really cool.
We were totally in over our heads, let me tell you. We showed up with these plastic canoe paddles, and we had athletes there that knew what they were doing, were like offering us their spare paddles because they're like, those things aren't really what you want. We're like, no, we're good.
Whoops. So on an adventure racing team, I kind of figured like everybody would have an expertise or a job on the team. Is that something that you tried to do? And if so, what was everybody's jobs?
Sure. So I usually end up being the team captain because I've got the organization part of it, and I'm also like the slowest and weakest. So the other guys with me are tasked with carrying my stuff, um, being the strong bikers. Dave and Jason are both really good at mountain biking, so they're like towing me up the hills. And my husband John's really good on foot, so he'd be towing me on foot. And we're all pretty good navigators, so we take turns on the navigating part.
Okay.
Dave is a very solid navigating on bike is a trick, and Marcy is a amazing navigator. But Dave has the ability to both navigate and bike, which is quite the unique skill, frankly.
And by navigating, are you meaning read a map, a compass, stars? I mean, like what is the navigation plan for these races?
I like reading the stars, but typically it's looking at a map and compass. So
okay.
in adventure racing, there's no electronics. So there's no GPS. We're not following a cell phone.
You can't ask Siri.
There's no asking Siri. It's all old school map and paper, almost a lost art. But yeah, you need to look at the ground, you look at a topo map, you look at bearings, all of those things, and that's how we're navigating now. I say occasionally we're looking for stars or the moon just to play games in the middle of the night when you're hallucinating on things, but that's a different time.
And how does one learn that type of navigation, since it is becoming much a lost art?
Well, in my case, I was on some adventure racing teams, and we spent most of the race lost. And so I figured I'd better learn how to navigate. And so honestly, I bought some books. I learned the basics, and then really it's just about getting out there and doing it. So there's orienteering meets. There's racing with people that know how to navigate and constantly ask, what are we looking for? What is this thing on the map? And just learning from others is really the best thing for me.
Awesome.
I think a lot of it's just practice. And fortunately, Marcy is a very good teacher and a really good navigator and would take us out. There was Bastrop State Park before it was destroyed by the fires. Used to have a fantastic permanent orienteering course, and you could buy a map at the park headquarters with different degrees of difficulty. And we would, and Marcy would organize, and it wouldn't just be our teams. One of the beauties of adventure racing is a lot of teams would help each other, and we'd go out and organize these events. And I remember one in particular was it was at night, and we had to find our way from one point to another with no compass. And then there was another point where it's like we had to memorize the terrain. I don't know. It was a lot of fun. And I think, frankly, a lot of it's like everything else. You just have to practice and fail and then learn from your mistakes and keep going.
Yeah. So are you guys all still racing together? Or are there still adventure races? Well, obviously, this last month is a no-go for anybody, but in the last year or two, have you guys been racing together, and are there still more races of these types still going on, like Borneo and all those big adventure races?
The last one I did was with Dave in Wyoming a couple of years ago, and then Dave has raced in Florida most recently. So, but it has been a lot less than over the years.
There's still a lot of big races around the world going on. So there are these big expedition races. There's not as many as there used to be, and there's not as many small races in Texas any longer, but there's still parts of the country. The Northeast is a very strong area. There's a tremendous number of adventure races going on there. I think all of us are doing less and less. So I certainly am doing less races since we all live far apart now. So it's a team sport, so it's not as much fun. You can do solo. Some races will allow that, but you need to get 3-4 people together all at the same time, all healthy, and so it's a lot more coordination these days.
Yeah, that's got to be a challenge in itself, getting everybody's schedules together these days.
Aaron, to me, that was the best part of adventure racing. Like, the Marcy said, it was different. It really was just the core of us. It was the three of us plus John plus Kip and then Leslie. And the racing was a lot of fun and hard, but the people you race with, I wouldn't change it for anything in the world. These are my best friends, and I not only would I go over the edge of a cliff, if I was on the edge of a cliff, these are the people I'd want to be on the edge of a cliff with, because you have to trust them with your life and the camaraderie you build. The jokes Dave Bogle would tell me about me, no one else would I ever allow that. But from Dave, it's pretty funny. You know,
I have a list.
tell those here.
Yeah.
I bet you guys have been alone in dark places, in both mentally and physically, multiple times. That the jokes kind of get a little crazy.
I agree with that.
So there is one of the races in preparation for Borneo was the Odyssey Adventure Racing. I think it was the Endorphin Fix, and it was. I forget who was. Dave was not with us. I forget who was on the team. I think Darren. Anyways, I was hallucinating in the middle of the night, and I know I was driving Marcy nuts because one of the next checkpoints coming up was we knew it was night and there'd be a fire. So every time we turned a corner, I was like, "Oh, fire! Oh, there's the fire!" Oh, like over and over, because you hallucinate for what you want. And though that wasn't a joke, and probably not funny at the time, it's pretty funny now. Not at the time.
So why were you hallucinating? How many hours are you guys racing at a time? There's 20. I think I watched you guys race a 24-hour race, but you guys finished it in like 12 hours. So you're not hallucinating in 12 hours worth of racing.
Usually not. So races can be 4 hours to 10, 12 days long. And so I think for most of us, we're typically non-hallucinating the first 24 hours of a race, depending on how you are going into it. But that, second 24 hours or on, certainly hallucinations can happen. And they kind of come on, and then they might not happen ever again in a race. So I know at the race I did with Marcy in Wyoming a year or two ago, I hallucinated a whole lot during the middle of the day one day. I kept seeing people in houses, and the rest of the team was like, "There's no house there." I said, "Let's just go over there. We'll get some water." And they were saying, "No, there's no house there. It's just the woods." But it seems still real while you're there. And then, then after that, I don't recall having any more hallucinations. So for me, it's usually 36 to 48 hours in.
Wow.
Hey, Aaron, I know this is your interview, but if I were to ask a question, I'd certainly want to ask Dave about his duct tape at the race he's talking about.
His duct tape?
For you.
Sounds like a story.
Yeah.
That's a good story about pain in adventure racing and what you're willing to endure. So as Jason mentioned, I tend to do a lot of the navigation on bikes, and this particular race had a tremendous amount of biking across the state of Wyoming. And on a mountain bike, you're typically bent over a lot, and I'm looking down, reading the maps, looking up, and the muscles in the back of my neck had failed. They just were worn out, and I could no longer hold up my head. And so this is actually not uncommon. There's other sports where these kind of things, I think they call it Sherpa neck or something like that, different things.
Yeah.
And so what we did to fix it was I just duct taped my head down my back. So we wrapped duct tape all around my head. We're in the middle of the night.
Hold on a second. So we're like, we're trying to figure this problem out where we've got mud, and we've got to figure out whether to keep going or turn around. And in the middle of this whole quandary, Dave goes, "Hey, Leslie, can you duct tape my head to my back?" And Leslie, who was just totally cool, would be like, "Oh yeah, I can do that. Sure. Where do you want the tape?"
No questions asked.
No questions.
So anyhow, they duct tape my head, and when I'm standing up like we are now, I'm looking up. But when you're on a bike, now I can see ahead. So this was quite a joke for, I don't know, that was like the last 24, 48 hours of this race. I forget exactly. But yeah, my head was duct taped, and I could only look up if we were standing.
Perfect.
So he ended up at a convenience store in the middle of the night, and he's walking around the store with duct tape on his head.
You get a lot of looks in the middle of Wyoming with your head duct tape facing upward. It was no crazy, S&M sort of a joke or anything. But,
yes, officer, we're fine. No problem. Nothing to see here.
Nothing to see. So,
hey, Dave, how'd you get the duct tape off? I'm
curious.
That
was miserable. Yeah, so they pretty much ripped it off at the end of the race, and most of my hair came with it. So it was quite a shenanigan. There's a bunch of pictures somewhere of them just ripping it off. They tried cutting it off. That was no good. So he just ripped most of my hair out.
big
that was,
giant
6 days into
chunks.
a race. It didn't really matter at that stage.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I think that's called Shermers. And it's a lot of ultra bike racers get it. People who are doing Race Across America and Race Across the West.
Same thing.
Bike racers get that. Yeah. That is crazy. So I have a lot of different questions leading up to, so I want to go back a little bit. Before you guys became a team, you all were from your bios, you all seem like you were all very sporty and doing lots of different types of athletic events, triathlon, running, climbing, mountaineering, ultra running. So was the adventure racing just an extension of that, or was it a way not to beat yourself up so much, or what brought all those things together? Like it sounds like all of you guys tried a bunch of different types of sports and then came up with this, and now are continuing to do some other types of things too. But so we'll start with Jason. So you did triathlon and all kinds of sports, right? And
I did. Yeah.
you still are very athletic. But what drew you into that adventure racing portion outside of like triathlon and running and?
Well, it's a very, very interesting story. I saw a flyer in Runtex. I mean, seriously, that's it. Marcy had posted a flyer in Runtex, and I had really Eco Challenge had been out for years by that point. I really wanted to do it, and I did have a big mountain biking background, and it was always my being outdoors and being athletic has always been my mental release, much more than physical prowess. I don't do it for physical prowess. I do it for mental release. And then again, like I was saying earlier, when you have the right team, it's almost undescribable how wonderful it is with the right people. But Marcy put up a flyer, and I was like, I want to do that. So, and you had to apply, like for real, apply. And so I applied. That's it.
That's it. David, how did you get into it?
I guess sort of just an evolution of things. So I was starting to do running and biking and duathlons. I had tried a few triathlons. Then I actually had a guy who really started the Louisiana adventure racing scene, a guy named David Polito, who actually was a coworker of mine, said, "Hey, I see you out running and biking. Let's go try this thing in the woods." And I said, "Sure." And really, I was quite hooked. I was never the fastest runner or biker ever, but when you started throwing in maps and navigation and problem solving, then it was a lot more intriguing to me. So yeah, a fellow coworker, a guy who used to put on a lot of races in Louisiana, got me into it, and slowly I built my own team, and then just kept doing it more and more. And I was doing a lot of races at certain points, probably 30 plus races a year, 40 races a year. I was traveling all over the place. That's all I was doing full time.
Wow. Marcy, now you've done ultra running, last man standing,
last woman standing.
Which ones have you done?
Just Big Dog Backyard and
Okay.
4 Mile an Hour Challenge out in California and one in Tennessee.
Amazing. Those are big races. Yeah, those are important ones. So, and you have set FKTs.
Yeah. I love FKTs because we travel a lot, so I just keep finding ones that guys have set up, and there's only times for the men on the board. So I'm like, well, that sounds like fun, and it's something longer. There's no Strava link for it, so it's something that might take a few hours, and I'm gonna go see some cool trail somewhere else in the country that I wouldn't normally know about. So I'll just go out and do it and run it for training, but it's like more than just training. I'm trying to actually run faster, but it's not as hard as a race. So
right.
Done that a few times in different places.
So Marcy's way underplaying this. So first of all, she's a, I don't know what you're allowed to say on your podcast, so you can keep it out, but she's an ass kicker.
Yeah.
You know, yes, she is. So one year she did take the women's for Big Dog, and then more people did start showing up. But I remember one year I think it was Danny or her husband, or maybe even Dave and they're telling me what she's doing, and I'm like, she's doing what? So Marcy, for grins and giggles, decides to run from the Alamo in San Antonio, Texas, to the Capitol in Austin, Texas, which is, you know, not only is it 100 miles on pavement. By the way, pavement sucks. It is not as fun as trail. It's like there are parts of San Antonio you just don't want to run. You just, let alone it's just crazy. And so she's kind of awesome, and she's just underplaying it a little bit, I'd say.
Well, I can tell, Marcy, you love your sport and you just love setting new adventures. So it's just part of your nature. It's not, for you, it's not a big deal. And I get that, but it is a big deal, especially when you're setting those activities. Yeah, that's awesome. So, Marcy, with all the long runs you've done, we'll talk about that, and then we'll ask Jason also. And what has been your favorite ultra run? So marathon, longer than a marathon, 30 miles and over.
Have to say Hard Rock was really, really amazing. Just enjoyed the whole experience of Hard Rock. And the Barkley was another one that just stands out as being something like a once in a lifetime experience of something different. That was a real adventure.
Yeah, I think we could probably just have a whole podcast on your Barkley run, because I haven't interviewed anybody who's actually done it, but I've heard about it. So that's awesome.
I wrote a really, really long blog post about it. It was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Jason, what's been your favorite long run?
Probably Lavaredo in northern Italy. I'm trying to remember. I don't remember I don't think it was quite 100K. I don't recall, but it was my first time to do an ultra in Europe. And the aid stations are very confusing to me because I'm a vegetarian, and it's like you walk in and it's meat and cheese. I'm like, what? For a lot of people, it's the dream aid station, but it was amazing. You run past these World War I bunkers, I think. It's in the Dolomites, and it was just phenomenal. And then I don't know, my first Sunmart, just because Sunmart is was such a singularly unique experience. I mean, they took such phenomenal care of their athletes. You got, you know, blankets, and I mean, you had this line of crap you'd go grab, and they'd give you a duffel bag, a Sunmart logo duffel bag, and then you'd go down and get all your stuff. And that was special because that was the first one I ever did, and I don't know, they're all wonderful. But again, it's really easy. I can't speak for Dave, but for me, I would just do what Marcy would tell me to, frankly. She would lay out the training. I'd be like, okay. So I'd go train. She'd lay out the gear you bring. I'd be like, okay. So I go take the gear. I was lazy and I didn't have to work to do ultras. I just did what I was told, you know.
Yeah, Sunmart was our first one too. And I just remember the very first aid station. We'd been doing marathons and road runs up to that point. We'd come into the first aid station. We're like, what is all this food? Like, this is amazing. Look at all this candy. We're standing there eating for like 5 minutes. We should probably move on.
Probably keep going. David, what are some of your favorite races, long races?
I guess if we're talking running, even though it's not a race, my most memorable long runs have been the Grand Canyon, rim to rim to rim.
Oh, yeah.
That is just beyond, you know, words and difficult to describe to people. So I'm not just the ultra runner lover that Marcy is, although I enjoy long runs. You know, after 40 miles or so, I'm about done. You know, so these 50s and 100s are pretty tough. But, you know, so the Grand Canyon for me is definitely one that stands out.
Yeah, that's amazing. I might even want to do that someday. Maybe just rim to rim. I don't know if I could go back.
That's
when
much
you figure
smarter.
out that you can't really get back around, you go back.
Okay, when it's not a choice. Okay.
Yeah, so Dave was very smart the year I did it with him. He's like, we're doing it the week before they start shuttle service from the north to south, so you had no choice. And I remember we touched the parking lot of the north side, and I looked across and I saw the south side, and I was like, you can see it where you have to go back.
It's right there.
And you're just like, oh my God, what have I done? Because you have no choice. That's it. It's horrible.
You got to go all the way down and all the way back up again.
Yes, you do.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. So, so working on that same theme, it doesn't have to be running, but for you, what was the most challenge? Let's as a team, see if you guys can agree. What was the most challenging race for you guys as a team? Agree.
So probably, I don't know, Dave wasn't with us, but we did a couple of Primal Quest races, and one of them we did with Jason. It was his first expedition race.
Oh God.
Primal Quest.
I wasn't going to say that, Marcy, because I actually forgot about that race.
Well, yeah, I can understand why. But for me, it was actually one of my easiest races because I'm usually the one pulling up the rear.
Horrible. It was not horrible. It was brutally hard. The only reason, that's one of the really cool things, Aaron, about Dave and Marcy, and for me about adventure racing. I simply would not finish the stuff that we finished because when you're going solo for some of this, it's just like, I pride myself on never giving up and standing back up and getting back at it. But there comes a point where if you don't have a team, I will not quit because I don't want to be the one letting down the team. And I have twice in 20 years, and I remember both those times. But it was hell. Hell.
What made it so challenging for you?
Fred?
Was that a teammate?
Sure. Yes.
He didn't start with it, but
I'll do the intro, but I think it's best if Marcy tells us.
This is your story, man.
Not the Fred naming. So we were on, there's massive parts of this race where I totally blacked out. And Dave and Marcy are much better at long distance races. I like 24 hours or less, and then I'm done. And I can push pretty hard. It's really hard on my brain. Sometime in the first, I'd say 2 or 3 days, we had a long mountain bike leg, and we were going up a Jeep road, and I turned back and I was slightly off my saddle I was in the lead and I was trying to call stuff out and to say something to the team behind me, and my back wheel hit a rock about the size of a softball. And I was just high enough off the saddle where it knocked the saddle into my groin. And I kept riding, and at some point I literally just fell down to the ground. And I frankly don't remember much other than from that point for like a day. I don't remember. So Marcy, you're going to I remember John Beard standing over me with a headlamp saying, we can call for help. We'll break out the radio and call for help. And I was like, no! But I was on the ground, curled up in a ball crying.
And that's the absolute truth. He would not give up. So we were like, we'll go whatever speed we need to go. We'll stop for however long we need to stop. We'll call for help, whatever we need to do, whatever you need. But he was like, I'm not giving up. And we're like, okay. The anatomically correct way to say it would be one of my testicles got to about the size of a grapefruit. And we got into the transition area, and I'm telling the medic in the middle of the night what happened. He's like, yeah, go ahead, drop your pants, let me look. And that part, I remember, goes, caramba! It was like,
caramba.
And he goes, is it normally like that? And I'm like, no, dude, it's nothing that's normally like that. So sometime later in the race, it was Marcy, John, and Kip, and they're calling out all these names, and I can hear them mumbling, and I can hear them giggling. And somehow they named said injury Fred, which stood for fertility rock of enormous dimension. Because when you're racing nonstop for 7 days, you have no other shit to talk about. That's what you come up with. So there you have it.
Well, no,
my worst race is still just anything to do with Haskell, Texas is still by far. Though that was pretty horrible too.
And with a new name, so that's awesome. Oh my gosh! So okay, so Dave, you weren't on this Primal Quest. You didn't get to see Fred. Thank God. You were probably blessed with that.
I didn't get to see Fred, thank God.
Thank God. Thank God.
So is there a challenging race, something that stands out in your head, either with the Team Vignette or without them, that was just...
Yeah, I've had a lot of challenging races, I would guess. So probably the most challenging for me with a different team was my first time doing Primal Quest in the U.S., which is another one of these 10-day, multi-day races, and it started in the deserts of Utah, I believe, and I chewed up the bottom of my feet. I literally walked the soles of my feet completely off, and they both became very infected, and so I really couldn't walk for days after that. And after the medics brought me to the hospital, it was all the, hey, you got to come see this. That's the most memorable part of all of this, when all the doctors came and took pictures with my feet, and as they picked mangled stuff out of there. So but like Jason and others have mentioned, it's the team that gets you through. So as long as all four people are not down and having a low point at the same time, and you have a good team, they can typically get you through these kind of setbacks. So as a solo event, this first time something goes wrong, you just quit or drop out or something else. But when you have a team and the team is willing to work with you, then it's a much better situation. Because I'd quit a lot more often if it wasn't for the team.
You guys are making adventure racing sound really sexy.
Well, you're asking the really hard questions, but the beautiful questions are the places we see, the number of stars we've seen.
Yeah.
We've been places where 99.9% of the population will never see. Even though it's open to anyone, people just don't go to all these places. So to me, that's the most memorable thing. And still, anytime I do an overnight adventure race, I get excited just because I can see stars. I live in a city, so I never see them, or rarely see many stars. You get out in these wilderness areas and you look at the night sky, and it's truly an amazing thing.
Yeah.
Aaron, the other thing is when people ask me, why would you do that? When you finish something like this, it is like sunshine is being beamed directly down in your brain for the accomplishment and the sense of achievement. It can't be matched. And no COVID virus and no whatever the challenge is, it's never going to take away those memories. It's never going to take away the bonds of friendship and the teams and the memories that including the funny memories of stuff like, in a medical injury and your feet tearing apart and all the other crazy stuff. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. Nothing.
That's crazy. All right. So with those challenging races, there has to be super scary moments, right? So in your racing careers, what have been that scary moment where you thought, yeah, this is it? This is how it ends? Or has there been those moments? Like, this is how this ends?
I have been worried one time to that extent when I was doing a rappel, and I flipped upside down when I was rappelling on a rope, and I was now dangling upside down. Even though your harness and everything should hold you when you're upside down, I was still pretty concerned for, it seemed like an eternity until one of my teammates, a different girl named Julie, just told me to shut my whining up and get back to rappelling, So, that was probably the scariest moment for me personally, was just, on a big rappel off of a rock wall, thinking you're going to crash to the ground.
Yeah, well, you're looking head first down the mountain, right?
Yes, that's exactly right.
Yeah. Come on, Jason, spill it. I know you must have had those moments.
For me, it was at the mule shoe race. The teammates were Dave, I think maybe Kip, And it was either Leslie or this lady named Kathy. It was so extraordinarily hot that I don't know if you remember this race, Dave, but we knew that and that's sometimes with adventure racing, we've never been the fastest team, but we're very, very, very strategically good. Like Marcy and Dave are, all of us, but Marcy and Dave are, as is John, phenomenal navigators. And if you make a mistake, we're going to capitalize on it. And in this race, it was so bloody hot that all we knew is if we finished, it's likely that we would win because we didn't know that anyone would be able to finish. I mean, teams were dropping like flies. It was horrifically hot. And we are on a section, we had done a ropes, and we're on the bike to head into Pace Bend Park. And I was getting cold. I was going hot, cold, and my skin was getting all prickly. It was that kind of hot. We were all out of water. And somebody towed me. I think it was Dave that towed me. And my bike is not set up to receive a tow. It's set up to give tows, which is a system in adventure racing. It does you no good to be first. That's stupid. It only does you good to be first with your team. You're counted together. So if you go and fly ahead and don't take care of your teammate, well, then more power to you. You just screwed your team. But my bike was designed to help others. So I had to hold on to this tow system for bikes. And I think it was, and I remember thinking like, please just let me, I could barely hold on. I wasn't even able to pedal, but all I had to do was hold on to this tow system. And I do remember thinking, well, I guess this might be it. It was Kip was one of them because we got into Pace Bend Park and someone was in the park, some camper brought over an ice chest full of ice water and they started pouring it on my head. And I remember saying, can you guys put some water on my head? I didn't even know they were dumping water. And then I sat down and we waited a couple hours and like usual, I was like, okay, let's go. I'm not quitting. So do you remember that one, Dave?
I do remember that one.
Yes. And the heat was, I don't do well in that kind of heat. So
yeah.
That was for me.
You were severely dehydrated.
Yeah.
Probably can't get a mid-race IV either, huh?
No,
there are some races that have allowed it, but most races you're disqualified if you have to do that.
Some expedition races will just give you a penalty box. Like, we'll give you an IV, but you got to sit for 12 hours before you can start again. And the clock doesn't stop.
That's brutal. Brutal. Oh, man. Okay, so...
Wait, Marcy, have you had any near-death experiences in your mind?
Yeah.
So I'm like the biggest wuss, and I don't generally put myself in those situations. I'm like the one going, no, not doing that. So I can't actually think of one. I mean, I've been scared shitless a number of times. Can I say that? I'm sorry. I've been really scared a number of times. But but no, I can't think of one thing that actually was that super dangerous. No.
Yeah.
There's this picture from on Kip's website of that Primal Crest race, and we're on the top of some peak and came over the scree field, and Marcy's like bent over, like pale. I'm standing up, pale. I don't know what the hell happened, but it was. There are many moments like that, which again I would not trade for anything.
Crazy. So with these adventure races, how different are they from the clue solving races, or is there clue solving within the adventure races, or how do they differ?
Well, the clue solving and adventure races are mostly completely different in my mind, although some adventure races have incorporated portions of clue solving in urban sections of races, and I suspect that's mostly with races in Texas because some of those race directors have been in clue solving races. So clue solving races are much more similar to the television show The Amazing Race, although it happens much, much faster. So the clue solving races, how those works are at the beginning of the race, and this is again, it's all on foot or public transit. So this is not you driving in your car or on a motorcycle. You get a list of clues and you solve those clues, and traditionally they lead to a place or something, and then you take a picture to prove you were there, or you get something to prove you were there. and the first one to complete it wins. So, and those are usually, I don't know, 4 hours long, somewhere in those kind of time frames. Can be faster, can be longer. Is that right, Marcy? Maybe 2 hours.
Yeah, 2 or 3.
So those are just short and for fun. Those aren't scary at all.
Some of the championships could be scary. We've gotten in coffins with snakes and bugs and things like that. As they've incorporated some of the fear factor type dares into that, or eating things
for the stratosphere.
do. So there have been some of those, but in general, it's not scary in my mind. It's a lot of hard work and a lot more people involved, but a lot of fun. And there's also money to be won in clue solving races. At least there used to be. So
cool. Okay, Jason, you've been climbing mountains. Did the rest of you climb mountains too, or is it just Jason who's being crazy?
Dave and I have been up. No, Dave hasn't climbed up a mountain with us, has he?
Not with you all, no.
No, okay, sorry. So yeah, I've done a couple, but nothing like Jason's done.
Okay, so what?
I get the stupid prize.
I'm gonna leave you for last for that. So Marcy, what mountains have you climbed?
We've been doing high points around the U.S., so we were all focused on that. Started with Mount Hood in a snowstorm and kind of loved it, so did a little bit more. So it's mostly just walking up steep snow slopes, learning how to walk on a rope and do self-arrest and a bit of glacier travel. Mm-hmm. So we've been up Mount Rainier was the big one. A couple things like that, Shasta, Rainier. Nothing super huge, but a lot of fun, just in the U.S.
I think I've only made it to I did Shasta, but I only made it to one of the glacial lakes. Yeah. And I was like, screw this, I'm staying here. And I camped out and waited for them to go do their thing and come back and get me. And then we slid.
Why? Why'd you stop?
I was not into it. It wasn't for me.
It's really steep. If you don't have the practice and you don't have a sense of what could happen if you fall, I mean, you got to know at least have the basics down. Otherwise, you shouldn't be there in the first place,
Yeah, back then I was cold and whiny. I'm sure I was a horrible person to be around at that point. So I just was like, I'm out. I'm just going to stay here. So awesome. David, what have you been climbing?
Nothing. I don't climb.
You're like, no.
That's about it. I have gone over mountains in adventure races, but no, I'm not a mountain climber. I have no real interest in climbing up tall, cold places just to do that.
Just to do that. Okay.
That actually was his quote to me when I tried to convince him to come to Aconcagua. He said, "That's cold and tall. Why would I do that?" And I was like, okay. I didn't know.
It's important to know your lane, right? So once you know,
I've done a lot of things that I found miserable, so no need to add more things to be miserable over. So
right,
other fun stuff to do.
All right, Jason. So list the mountains you've been climbing, and then I want to talk about why we're doing this.
What to say? Well, why? Because I love the challenge. I hate the answer of it's there. It's such a stupid answer, but most recently the big mountain I did was Aconcagua, which is it's just a very long, very hard hike. What makes it deadly is the altitude. You could get a lot.
Where?
South America. In Argentina. Okay. On the border between Argentina and Chile.
Okay.
You base out of Mendoza, Argentina, and you go from there. A lot of it is very mentally tough, but the beauty is the mental part. It's like, well, this isn't as hard as adventure racing. At least I get to sleep in a tent and have food that's being cooked, so I would enjoy it more with my teammates. But what makes it dangerous is the altitude. It's I think it's 22,841 or 23,841. Regardless, the way people tend to die up there is from HACE, cerebral edema, or HAPE, pulmonary edema. And so if you're physically not in shape, don't do that. The technical likelihood of you dying is much greater on Mount Rainier, just because of crevasses and you need to have technical skills. Last year I climbed in the Alps of Europe, which I absolutely loved and have every intention of going back. And we did Dufourspritz, the Route d'Entrevis, Mont Blanc, and made it about 2/3 of the way up Mont Blanc. 2/3 up the Matterhorn, and they had terrible weather the prior day, and we were in mixed conditions, which is ice, snow, rock over and over. And I'm technically good and I'm fast. I am not technically good and fast at the same time. And in those kind of conditions, you have to be down off those mountains early, because they start melting and the rock of the mountain starts falling apart. And the high fatality rate is from rock fall from above you. And that really, I did not like not making that mountain. I'll just leave it at that. So my intention is to go back and knock out Matterhorn and then Eiger. Eiger was going to be the last one. Unfortunately, because we didn't do Matterhorn, we weren't given permission to go do Eiger. So those two, I'd like to, after doing that, head back down to Argentina and do a couple mountains, which I'll leave unnamed in case my mom watches this and then goes and Googles it. So it's very interesting. I'll call her and I'll be like, "Hey, Mom," and she'll go, "Where are you going now?" Yes. So, yeah, I just love it. I love the technical aspect of it. I love working with ropes. I love the push of learning new things. I love the physical challenge. And frankly, I love how beautiful it is up top. It's so gorgeous on top of a mountain, a tall mountain where you can see a range. It's spectacular.
Yeah. So do you have like a goal in mind, like the highest peak on 7 continents, or like what are you doing? Are you just picking random mountains?
Well, Matterhorn and Eiger definitely are a goal. Denali, I'm supposed to be coming off that mountain 3 days ago, but obviously my plans were changed by there's this virus thing going around.
Yeah, whatever.
So the National Park Service shut that down. I had no intention of doing Everest, but Marcy and I's mutual acquaintance, Charlie Engel, for some reason, he's doing this thing called 5.8, which he starts at the lowest point on every continent and goes to the highest. So he did Kili from the lowest to the top of Kilimanjaro, which is 2,500. And Everest, he's going to start at the Dead Sea in Israel, go 4,500 miles to the top of Everest, which sounds so crazy, stupid, idiotic. It's actually appealing. I mean, it's so outrageous. I'm like, huh. But otherwise, I would have no desire for Everest. I don't like the way that the mountain is trashed, frankly, and the amount of trash that's left on the mountain and the lack of environmental stewardship and how the Sherpas are treated. So I have to reflect on that one a lot.
Not to mention the management of the number of people up there at a time and the danger that you get into at the top.
Yeah.
Climbing is so for all of us, a lot of the races we did would require skills testing. And one of the very basics we would have to do if it had a rope section was, can you work with an ascender, abseiling? So that's a device that connects to your harness to go up versus down. And there was a documentary on the Sherpas. This is on Everest, where the Sherpas were having to show their clients how to use an ascender device while they're climbing the summit Everest. And so things like that make me question what I'm wanting to do, when that was a basic in adventure racing that we'd have to learn before going up a hill, let alone the highest peak on the planet. So I don't know. I know Denali is on there. I know Matterhorn and Eiger are on there. And sorry, Mom, Fitzroy in Patagonia is on there as well. So.
Man. I mean, talk about seeing places on the earth that nobody else has. I mean, that's when you're one of handfuls or hundreds that have been to the top of those mountains, it's got to be pretty special.
You know, Aaron, it is, but the reality is, again, if I had to choose between climbing mountains or having the experiences I've had adventure racing with my team, but we're a very unique team. There's not a lot of teams that can say, for the most part, for 20 years, it's been the same team. I think it's one of the reasons we're successful, but it's the wonderful joy of doing it together. I wouldn't do that crap alone. That would be ridiculous. But yes to being on the top and having those experiences, but I'll take the experiences with adventure racing even over that.
Yeah. I think one of the things we've learned with this coronavirus that everything is better with people you love and care about. And being separated from those people has been hard for lots, right? So that's the one thing we're missing, is that companionship of our group of friends all the time. So I think that's one of the things that we're all going to come out of this with, is that, the people that we do have in our communities are special, and to make sure that they stay in your lives, the people you care about. That's my just 2 cents. So Marcy, I'll start with you. So what's next? What's like the next big adventure?
That's a great question. I was talking about the high points. So we just recently did number 49, which was Florida. Woo-hoo! So we're at
Florida. Did you stand on a tuna can or something?
It was at the very top left corner of the state. So yeah, so we also are down to just Denali, but I haven't committed to that yet. So that's something that I'm not sure where I'm going yet with that one. And it's more right now just focusing on running, ultra running, last man standing races, FKTs, and exploring as we travel around the country. I'm just really enjoying that. We're working on a project where we're converting our travel trailer to just use electricity. We've gotten rid of the propane out of it, and we want an electric truck to tow it. So that's our focus right now, is how to take that and make it a bigger adventure and incorporate some of the running stuff that we're doing also with the traveling. And so it's really vague right now, but it's kind of something that I'm working toward.
No, that's awesome. It sounds like it's you're doing all these fun adventure eco, but you're also incorporating like how to be environmentally smart about it also, right? Reducing your footprint and all that as you go through these adventure races.
Exactly, yes. Because we love to travel, but we have a truck that spews diesel. So, like, okay, we can spend days out in the wilderness and then really love it and enjoy it, and then come back and feel bad about driving away from the trailhead. So, yeah.
Oh, that's not the way it should be.
Exactly.
We'll see and obviously Jason fell off, so hopefully he can pop back on. We'll get him back in, I'm sure. David, what about you? What's next for you?
I've got no big next, I'll tell you right now. So
no big next.
No big races planned, no big adventures planned. I always have my ear open, and if I see something that looks like a lot of fun, I'll jump right in. But these days, I spend a lot of time traveling for work, so I enjoy that, just spending an extra day somewhere running or exploring wherever I'm at these days. But right now, there's some local races coming up if this COVID ban ever gets lifted, and we'll do those. But other than that, no big events on the horizon.
Okay. Yeah, Jason came back in, but he's sideways, so. Jason, we were just asking, so what is next adventure-wise with you? Well, I guess those mountains, right? If we ever get this lifted.
Man, I would love for a Team Vignette reunion at Camp Eagle, frankly. I think that'd be a lot of fun. I don't know. My goal was to come and cheer Marcy on at a very famous running race in Chamonix, France called the UTMB in August. The days and dates are running together at this point, frankly, but I'm pretty sure that's August. And then try at Matterhorn and Niagara again after cheering on Marcy and John. That was the goal. But
that's a nice.
Everything's up in the air right now.
Yeah, hopefully, I don't know. I keep thinking we're all going to be back to normal by July, but maybe that's a dream. I'm not sure. So I'm just going to keep dreaming. We're all going to be back to normal in July.
Dream on.
I have the SOS in September, so I'll be really bummed if that gets pushed out. So
what's the SOS?
The SOS triathlon is Survival of the Shawgunks triathlon. So it's in New Paltz, New York. It starts off with a 30-mile bike ride. 25 miles is relatively flat. 5 miles is straight up the mountain. So you start with the bike ride, and then you ride to the top of the mountain. You run 5 miles to a lake. You swim across the lake. Then you run to the next lake, and you swim across that lake. And then you run to the next lake, and then you swim across that lake. And then you run, I think it's 8 legs total, so repeats. And then the finish is at the top of this spiral mountain with a lighthouse at the top of it. So
That sounds fun.
yeah, it's really cool. It's really old. It's about a 30-year-old triathlon. It's a very small group of people that gets to do it, and you have they open registration at midnight on Halloween, and it sells out in 2 minutes. And I was on my computer ready to sign up, and I got in. So hopefully I get to actually race it.
That's awesome. I love the gunks. They're just beautiful, so beautiful up there.
Never been there. It'll be awesome. And then this company has got 2 new ones now. They got one in Massachusetts, out in the islands there. What am I thinking?
Martha's Vineyard type?
Yeah, that area. So they're swimming and running through there, and then the other one is in Curacao, so in the tropics. So that would be even better. But so those are fun things to think about, and still within that triathlon realm. And I'd wanted to do it just to change up my routine from my normal half Ironman business. I needed something that was different and tested me on my running and swimming skills, which I both lack greatly. So it is all about running and swimming. So figuring out, if you guys can help me figure out how to train for this sucker in Austin, that'd be great, because I didn't really think that far ahead.
I'd recommend running and swimming.
A lot.
We swam across Town Lake one time.
Yeah, there's over 18 miles of running and I think 5 miles of swimming in total. So,
Dave, are you allowed to swim in Lake Georgetown?
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Oh, yeah. That's fine, swimming.
there you go. That sounds terrible. Yeah, we'll see. So what's next? So the other thing I know is that you guys are all very highly successful in your day jobs or your day lives, not just your adventure racing lives. David, tell me a little bit more about what you do for business.
I'm an engineer for a company out of New Orleans, Louisiana. I've been with them for a long time, like 27 years. And I head up a research and development division or segment in that company, and I develop mostly products for food manufacturing. So I've been pretty busy lately with plants trying to switch over to be able to produce more food for all these people buying stuff at the grocery store. So this COVID thing for me, I want to go away just so I can slow down and relax a little bit versus, everybody else just wanted to get outside. I'm working a lot because of all this.
I think the engineer part of your life is pretty evident with the quilt behind you.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a Star Wars nerd, so.
Giveaway.
Yeah.
Marcy, it sounds like you just race all the time, but that can't be true.
I do a lot of running. I am also an engineer. I spent a long time with Motorola and IBM doing microchip manufacturing. So that was for quite a while. We went over to France and lived there for 3 years doing that. And then pseudo retired. So I've been kind of working off and on. My husband installs solar, so that's what we do as we travel around the country. And so mostly right now, I plan our travel and I train and working on the project with the all-electric project, so getting that going.
Wow.
Just work.
Just work. Just normal.
Their all-electric project is actually really, really cool.
Yeah.
It's super cool. And I think people should, I don't know if there's a way, Erin, for you to link to her blog on it, but they're focused completely being off-grid using solar and electric-powered technology. It's pretty cool. And there's a blog for you to read, to keep an eye on it, to learn about it.
We will definitely put that in the show notes for sure. And of course, just about everything you guys have talked about today will be in show notes as well. Jason, tell us a little bit about what you're doing now. I know, but you can tell all my listeners what you're doing and what you've been doing lately too. But I know you've been not only a friend of mine since 2009, but you've been what I call you my business mentor. So that's your new job. Your title for me is not only my friend, but my business mentor. So when I have questions about business, you're the first person I come to, but tell everybody what you do and how you got there.
That's actually my primary focus right now. I've pivoted quite a bit that our business is down about 22%, and that's in commercial real estate, so collection of rents. And I also am a partner in a chain of laundromats that focuses being a community resource center for low-income areas. So we have a children's play area, a children's library, healthy snacks in the vending machine, help people prepare their taxes for free. Because to me, to help uplift someone financially, around the fundamental key is if you can give a child a book and read to children, you're going to have a meaningful positive impact on a child's life. And that is on hold right now because our children's libraries and the laundromats are closed, but we're offering wash, dry, fold, and other services at cost, half price, so our customers can still keep it. So, but the primary focus for me right now is helping people. And I've been offering live Q&As nationally with people logging on to Zoom or watching on Facebook, and I've been very, very fortunate in my life. I don't know how I got so lucky, but I've got tremendous business partners and friends who are willing to do these live Q&As and give very sound advice. And, for example, guys who are the largest owner of multifamily workforce housing in the nation, and hedge fund owners, and at that caliber, offering their time. And again, I'm more lucky than I deserve for sure. And I just want to, in offering free one-on-one business consulting, and there's no strings attached. There's no sign up for our 60-minute program, and then you get an email a week about how you have to register and pay. I'm just trying to help small businesses, frankly, today survive, because I think there's some pieces lacking on a national level, and I'll just leave it at that. And so I'm trying to, in some small part, step in and do anything I can to help people think through where they are with their business and find strategic ways to survive. And it is a singularly unique time in our nation but a lot of the lessons from adventure racing, frankly, apply. A lot of it is, no matter how miserable it gets, you must get up and you must keep going, and you must communicate with your team, and you must solve the problem. And if you do, you have a reasonable chance of making it to the finish line. And so fortunately for me, with people like Dave and Marcy and Kip and John, by the way, I'm the only non-engineer on the team. So they needed a token not smart guy. They just didn't put it, Marcy just didn't put it on the application. So I was like, oh, we need somebody who's not an engineer. So they're all engineers but me. But that's what I'm doing. Is I've been so much more fortunate, frankly, than I deserve, and I'm trying to give back. So
yeah, I don't know about deserve, because you work very, very hard. As long as I've known you, you work a lot, and you are very smart. You might not be an engineer, but you might be you're
definitely not an engineer.
For sure. So tell me, and we'll kind of start wrapping it up, but tell me, what lessons have you learned about yourself through adventure racing? Marcy, how's that?
Well, like I said, I'm afraid of a lot of things, and I guess just facing that and having teammates help you through it means that you can do just about anything.
Yeah. David?
I guess for me, it's amazing how far you could push yourself to where you think you're going to die from exhaustion or tiredness. And then you can bounce back after a little rest and a little bit of Marcy telling you to drink some Spiz or some water or something. So for me, that's the lessons that I've learned. You can push yourself a whole lot harder than you could ever imagine.
Yeah. But it sounds like it. Jason, I mean, you kind of touched on this with our last topic, but
I kind of go back to with the right team, and that's key. You can accomplish stuff you just can't on your own, or won't on your own, maybe. And with the right team, you will. And I mean, Vignette has a really solid track record of first place wins overall, and second place and third place. And it certainly isn't because I'm some fast guy. I happen to be lucky enough to be with a really strong team, and I get to hang on their coattails. But I think the key is with a really strong team, you can just do so much. And contrarian, with a really crappy team, you can't do anything. You're not even going to finish. Yeah. And I think the other thing is man, just don't give up. The ones who will continuously just get back up and just keep going past whatever they possibly think or want they can do, they have a good chance of doing pretty well. So those are my two things: your team and your persistence.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think you guys have all proven your persistence in all these different adventures and tackles and goals that you have set for yourselves, and the FKTs and the mountains and all of it. The hundreds and hundreds of miles. It's amazing. I'm in awe. I mean,
and duct taping your head and then getting ripped off.
When in doubt, just duct tape your head.
Duct tape fixes more than you can imagine, you know?
You know, it's true. And I actually, on my triathlon checklist, right? So all the stuff you pack for a triathlon, and I send it to all my new athletes. The second to the last thing is duct tape. And because you never know where you're going to need it. You got to have duct tape in your tri bag at all times, because you could need to tape your head or whatever needs to happen. That's awesome. You guys, thank you so much. And Jason, you have been on my list of people to interview and talk to since I started the Drunk Athlete podcast. Like, when I first sat down to thought about doing this, I listed 15 people that I knew that I wanted to talk to, and you were on that list. This is episode 94, so it took me a while to get to you, but I think it took COVID to get you to slow down, to stay home for me and to schedule it. So some things...
So are you trying to say that I was one of the 15 people that you could have convinced to drink while interviewing? Is that
Yes.
what you're...
Yes. No, you are definitely one of the most interesting people I know, and crazy athletes, and I knew you have stories, so I definitely wanted to get you on the show. I'm just glad that we finally got you here, almost 2.5, 3 years later, but we're finally in it, and I'm excited for you guys. I hope you guys keep racing together as a team, and you keep doing fun stuff. I'm gonna tag that website for y'all, and then some of these races too in the show notes. And we'll get this out for you soon. But you guys, amazing! Thank you so much. And here's to friends all coming together. Hopefully more. Let's see. Where's my camera? There we go. Cheers, y'all! Yay! Iced tea. Iced tea. Thank you so much. And that's a wrap with Drunk Athlete.
Thank you.
Thanks, Derek. Bye. Thanks.